Welcome to Views from the Top, the podcast from Arma Partners. Today I am delighted to welcome Elona Mortimer-Zhika, who's going to tell us about culture, leadership and AI. Elona, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Pleasure to have you as always.
Thank you. I feel very privileged to be here.
I'm the privileged one.
I've made it to the top.
Top of the chart, nearly. Maybe for the benefit of the few people who don't know you already, can you please remind us about your career history and how you got to the position you're in today?
Absolutely. So, originally from Albania, born in dictatorships, I had a very, very different upbringing to the world of today as I know it. And when I was 16, I was really fortunate to win a Nelson Mandela scholarship. So I came to the UK. I didn't speak much English. I had never traveled before or been on a plane. I had never met anybody that was an Albanian before. And I went to a college with kids from over 100 different countries. So that was the first time I'd met anybody that was of a different race or religion or nationality. And the best way I can explain it is that my world just became really, really big overnight. And it taught me a lot of things that have probably informed the leader that I then later became. It firstly taught me how much better it was to never be the smartest person in the room again, because I probably was one of the smartest people in the room until then, but my room was very, very small. So it taught me the true power of diversity. And by that, I don't just mean visible diversity, but diversity of thinking. And I know we might talk about that later. It taught me the power of collaboration, really, really important, particularly in the world of AI today, where we have a lot of different points of view and we've got to collaborate together to make sure that what we build is fit enough for the future, really key. It taught me about resilience because I was 16-year-old and away from home and couldn't even call my mum and dad because I didn't have a phone. And again, that's really important in business and again, particularly in the world of AI today, where there is a lot of transformation that happens between us. So which are those businesses that will remain resilient and survive? And most importantly, it gave me a massive thirst for learning and taught me a lot about curiosity. And again, that is more relevant today than ever before. I then studied accounting and economics. I was always going to be an accountant. My dad was an accountant. He was my hero. He taught me my love for maths. And then I went to Big Four, Arthur Andersen, Deloitte, worked with a lot of businesses, but all software. So I've been in software for the last 25 years. And then I moved to private equity-backed businesses about 16 years ago and fell in love with private equity. And I spent the majority of the last decade running a business called Iris Software Group that was private equity backed. I started as CFO, then COO, then CEO for the last 5.5 years. And in that time, the business completely transformed from people, process, culture, product. We moved to the cloud. We went to the US. We moved from 700 people to 4,000 people. Moved EV from 700 million to 4 billion. You should know because you were involved. Thank you. But the one thing that I genuinely am most proud of was the culture that we built. We were a great place to work in every country we were at. Great place to work for women, for wellness, for development. 49% of our employees were women. So I know we might talk about culture today, but very passionate of culture as a great enabler. And then after we sold Iris, I left about a year after the sale, and I now sit on a few European software boards as an NED and a chair, and absolutely loving it and enjoying it. And obviously in today's world of AI, it's a very exciting time, to say the least. So,
well, you've mentioned culture in the context of Iris and your various portfolio companies.
Yeah.
They say culture drives performance. How? How does it drive performance? And more importantly, how do you measure that, the impact of the initiatives you take on culture and what it does to the business? How can you measure that?
I genuinely think it's one of the biggest tools leadership has, and probably one of the tools that is most undervalued, because you can have an amazing strategy, but if you've got the wrong culture, then you're not going to succeed. Or you can have a pretty mediocre strategy, and with the right culture, you will be punching above your weight, because those people will think for themselves, they will find solutions, they will stay curious, and they are going to get you there. They will adapt. So I do think culture is really important. What does it mean? Like, what does that look like in reality? It looks like people who are empowered to make decisions. So decisions don't all have to be made at the top. They are made at every level, because you have communicated that strategy clearly and those priorities clearly, so people can ask for forgiveness, not for permission. It means that people can make fast decisions because they don't need perfect data, because there is a trust that's assumed. So you don't get to the point where you get paralysis by analysis and no decision is made. It means that people are okay to let you know bad news. So bad news will travel fast, which is what you want in an organization, because they believe that there is value in you having the bad news, because you might be doing something about it, and they're not worried that they will be punished, because that blame culture is really awful. And for most of us, we all recognize that actually failure is another part of success. And as long as we fail fast and we learn from that, that's how you build innovation, curiosity, high performance. And the last bit is probably a team where they hold each other accountable to a very high bar without authority or that being imposed on them, but because they recognize that that is the right thing to do. So I've passed you the ball, and I'm going to hold you accountable to you doing what you said you were going to do. And again, that can be quite rare in certain cultures. How the opposite shows itself is people stay in their lane. People never say the thing that everybody is aware of. Decisions are taking a long time. There is authority is needed when a decision is made, or they all go to the top. How do you measure it? Obviously, there are tools. You can use software like Culture Amp and Peakon. We use Peakon. We did a survey every month. So we really listened to what our employees were saying. We change the questions every month. But that gives you the sentiment. The real things that you need to look for are your outcomes. What's your attrition? Where is your high talent going? What's your internal mobility rate? Is talent moving within the organization, or is it going somewhere else? How much innovation is happening in the organization? What's the lead time between bad news happening and you finding out about it? And my favorite one is probably manager EMPS, a manager rating, because people come to work for their boss, and their boss is most important, in most cases, are responsible for driving culture. So the question of, would you recommend working for your manager, I think is a really key question to ask. And at my previous business, we put a portion of the manager's bonus aligned to their team engagement. It's quite interesting. I recommend you do it.
Yes. Pros and cons to that. I need to reflect on it. Why does cognitive diversity, as in different people thinking in different ways, matter more than gender diversity or race diversity?
So obviously visible diversity, so gender, race, religion, etc., is important. It's morally the right thing to do anyway. But really, in itself, it doesn't give you what organizations really are looking for, which is, as you said, the diversity of thinking, the cognitive diversity. Because the question is, how do we make our world bigger? How do we make sure that we have different perspectives around the table? And you can have a visibly diverse team, but if they have been trained exactly in the same way, then they are going to reach consensus really quickly. And as an organization, that's not what you want. You don't want consensus. You want a little bit of productive friction. You want some challenge. You want people to think outside the box, to bring new ideas to the table. So with cognitive diversity, that's exactly what you get. You get that productive friction. You get people looking at exactly the same thing and weighing evidence in a different way, and also feeling comfortable to say, I don't think that assumption holds here. And, data shows us that consistently, if you've got a team that is diverse in their thinking, then you are much better at fixing complex problems. You are much better at innovation, and you are much better at decision making and decisions that will last for a long time. Now, obviously, ideally, if done right, that visible diversity will lead you to cognitive diversity. But as long as we are prioritizing the thinking and not the optics.
And if you're not getting that blend right and your culture becomes too rigid and one-dimensional, how do you know that? How do you know that's happening? And what should a leader do to change that?
And it's, to be honest, it's almost the opposite of what we spoke about, a high-performing culture, right? People will agree with the most senior person in the room. They're not going to challenge a decision. People stay in their lane. People don't want to say the thing that everybody knows. They are more worried about not being wrong than being right. And that's a big problem, particularly in today's world with AI. You have got to remain curious. And that rigid culture means that nobody is staying curious or questioning things. They just say, this is how we do it here. There isn't that friction that needs to exist for us to go, how do we reinvent what we're doing today rather than look backwards? People will leave you because they are going to very often cite that they are frustrated that they can't move forward, as opposed to the package, which is what they should be saying. So really, without a culture where everybody can bring themselves to the table, because that is the pure definition of diversity. It is you being allowed to be yourself and bring your own thinking to the table and your own challenges to the table, then an organization is not curious enough, and it's not going to be able to innovate enough, and it's not going to be able to move at the rate that the world around us is moving.
The world is moving. Your heritage and your focus today is primarily on software. How do you maintain belief within a company, cultural belief, when the world around you is saying software is dying or declining?
Yeah, it's been an interesting few weeks. As I mentioned, I am on the board of a few software businesses. And at a personal level, majority of my personal investments are also in software. So when you wake up in the morning and you read stark headlines like SaaS is dead and, AI is going to replace software, it's been interesting, to say the least. And as we've witnessed, $1 trillion of value has been wiped from software assets, right, in the last few weeks alone. So what can you do about it? I think the first thing you need to do is you have got to face the ugly truth. What you can't do is hide your head in the sand, give people false positivity, because people aren't stupid. They read the news and they know that this will change us. So what you can't do is be dismissive and say, oh yeah, software will be fine. That's not enough. I mean, the reality is, maybe AI hasn't affected your P&L yet, and there is a 90% chance that actually it hasn't. Your revenue and your EBITDA today haven't been affected that much by AI, but they will be. And for sure, something has happened. Your terminal multiples have been affected. Your value has been affected. So this is code red, whether you like it or not. So what you need to do is you need to really think about how does it affect your category and whether you've got any moats, so that you can go back to your employees, your investors, and talk about what you're doing about it, not whether it's going to affect you or not, because we know that it's going to affect you. So you look for things like data, your proprietary rights, your relationship with your customers. I mean, we know today that Claude it used to be able to code at the level of an entry-level engineer 2 years ago. And now it already can code at a principal-level engineer. So it's done in 2 years. It takes humans 15 years to move from grad level to principal level. We know that AI is able to do autonomous tasks for 12 hours. And 4 years ago, that was 0 hours. But if you apply a different lens to that, like compliance, for example, then there's only a 50% success rate in those 12 hours, the chances of them getting it right. So in compliance, we're looking for 90% accuracy, 100% accuracy. And if you apply that lens, then actually the numbers are really low. So if that's one of your moats, if you are in a compliance-driven industry, and that is how you will defend yourself, then that's what you use. And that is how you convince your employees that we have got something to use to better ourselves one day. And as a minimum, you need to make sure that your engineering department is using agentic tools, because you need to increase your productivity, their velocity, their innovation, their capacity. You need to make sure that those agentic tools are rolled out throughout your organization, so that, you know, people in HR, in finance, in support are using them, so you have a more productive organization, and AI becomes part of your TOM, your target operating model. It's the way that we do business today. It's not a bolt-on. And most importantly, you have to make sure that your product strategy is an agentic product strategy where AI, as I mentioned, is not a bolt-on. What you cannot do is automate what you currently have. What you have to do is say, with the automation that exists today and the speed that exists today, if I was building my business from scratch, how can I use this automation, and what would I be doing? How would I be doing it? Because otherwise you'd end up doing the equivalent of putting a car engine on a horse carriage. And that's not going to work because it's not fit for purpose. So those, in my view, are some of the things you can be doing to genuinely prove to your employees, to your investors, that you're doing something about it, and not pretending that it's not going to affect you.
But software is not dying, therefore it is evolving.
It's not dead, for sure, not dying.
What is it evolving into? Slightly unfair question, of course, but fast forward a few years from now, what does software look like?
I don't know how relevant this answer is going to be.
We'll find out in a few years.
A few years from now. I mean, my view of the world is that things are not as stark as they seem. And I think the short-term impact is overstated and the long-term impact is understated. I think we will see a divergence where there'll be a big gap between winners and losers. But what is the future of software? In my mind, I think software will become almost invisible. It will become assumed. It will become part of the tapestry, part of infrastructure, a little bit like electricity or plumbing, that we don't really notice anymore. We assume that it exists unless it goes wrong. And humans will worry about whether the thing that they wanted to get done got done, rather than consciously thinking that they logged into some app to get something done. In my mind, it's all going to be about workflows rather than product features. So they're going to collapse. And the winners are going to be those that truly understand the end-to-end processes of an organization. They're going to cater to those. So you're talking about a process fix rather than a feature fix. It's going to be about moats like data. Your proprietary data is going to be really important. Your domain knowledge is going to be really important. Your integration is going to be really important. As I mentioned, it's going to be about using the automation that exists today to rethink and reinvent what we're doing, rather than have it as a bolt-on. And I think it's going to be more like a connecting tissue. Today, with our apps, software is like an organ. It's your heart, it's your liver, and it's very good at doing one thing, maybe two things, maybe three things. Once it moves in the future into a connecting tissue, it will be the bit that connects your data to your processes, to your people, and your AI power to build something coherent, to send signals, to make sense, to connect the dots. And I think it's going to be super powerful. Those companies that are going to be good at one or two or three things, I think, are going to not be here anymore. And the software that is going to be embedded, truly embedded into an organization, and it's going to be able to link the data, the workflows, the institutional memory of that organization, is going to win. You know, if you're a CFO, today, a non-agentic tool is able to help you create a report really fast. So that saves you some time. But an agentic tool is going to be awake 24/7. It's going to keep looking through your data without you having to say anything to it. It's going to look for those anomalies. It's going to be getting you ready as a CFO for your board meeting. It's going to probably tell you the questions you're going to be asked, and maybe tell you the answers you should say, and maybe tell you the 3 decisions you should be making the week you go to the week before you go to the board meeting. So in a way, the CFO isn't using the software. The software is working for the CFO. I think that's where we're going to go. But I mean, what do I know? As I said, this might be out of date tomorrow. So let's see.
But the question gets asked a lot at the moment, and people tend to take a very binary view, AI winners, AI losers. And you're involved in multiple software companies, when an investor asks you or expresses a view as to the future of a business in 5 years' time because of AI and tries to put them into one of those two buckets, winners, losers, how do you approach that question? How do you answer?
I think it's a bit similar to when we spoke about what do you say to your employees and how do you keep the faith. You have got to take it head on. You have got to, you cannot be dismissive and you cannot be defensive. If anybody is sitting there thinking that they are protected from AI, then they are not going to be the winners. I think it's really important that you show what you're doing and you start by saying, yes, AI is going to change us all. But by the way, here are my moats. You have got to find the things that will be your defense mechanism, your uniqueness. And it can't be your people and culture. As passionate as I am about people and culture, many can use that. Those are the fillers. Those are the how will you do it, the curiosity, etc. But you need to have your USP, your moat. As we mentioned, proprietary data becomes really important, whether you're in a compliance-driven industry, so you've got some market knowledge that nobody else has, that models haven't been trained on. Your 25-year relationship with your customers is going to become really important, the human aspect that comes into that. So the question is not, will you be affected by AI? The question is, are you going to be a winner or are you going to be a loser? And in order to be a winner, you've got to do the things that we discussed earlier. You have got to make sure that you have an agentic first culture, not just within your engineering organization, but the rest of your organization where AI is part of your target operating model. And you've already rethought what the future of what you're trying to do looks like if you started from scratch. And I think what's important here as well, which I think is positive, is that incumbents have an advantage because they've got access to data. And if they have the right culture, they will stay curious and they will innovate. If you look at the top 10 tech companies in the world today, like NVIDIA, like Microsoft, like Amazon, like Tesla, like Meta, they have been around on average for 35 years. So the good news is that age is not a problem. Complacency is. So don't tell people what they want to hear. Show them what you're doing about it. Because in today's world, none of us have the answer, but we can move at least as fast as the technology around us is moving.
We've talked about culture and people. We've talked about AI. In an AI-centric world, where does the human advantage rests? How do we remain relevant?
It's a very, very good question. I think accountability and trust are going to be really important. Because at the end of the day, things might go wrong. They will go wrong. And at that point in time, somebody needs to be accountable and somebody needs to take responsibility. And humans need that skin in the game. AI cannot give you that. I think that context and relationships will be really important because AI is able to tell you whether something is correct or not, but not necessarily able to tell you whether that's the right thing to do. It's not able to translate for you whether what somebody said, what they meant by it, because a lot of times we say one thing and then we mean something else because you need to be the person that's watching in the room. Those ethical decisions need to stand in the hand of humans. Those negotiations that might take place when there is a political judgment or a moral judgment need to stand in the hand of humans. I think there's going to be new areas. We will innovate all the time. There will be new areas where data doesn't exist. So then what happens? AI can't help you without data. So there's going to need to be a human in the loop that becomes important. I think purpose as well, that's going to be defined by humans. And interestingly, I think we will hire for different skill sets. Because today, if you're a software business, until very recently, you have hired computer science graduates, because that's what was needed. The reality is a lot of that skill set today has been replaced by AI. So we might want to look for more creative workforce, because creatives, people from film, from media, marketing, they are art, they are trained in a completely different way. They can live with a paradigm of something that's not certain without being paralyzed by it. They think about whole system thinking. They design things. Designers look at things and go, who is going to use it and what for? And that's exactly what the future of software looks like. We have to think about workflows and outcomes. They also are used to challenging the brief. When they're given a brief, the first thing they do is go, is this the right brief or not? Let me question the brief. If you give a brief to an engineer, they will optimize that brief. They will assume that it's right and they will optimize for it rather than ask, is this the right question? So in my mind, the humans that are going to be most successful are not going to be those that are going to compete with AI tasks. AI is always going to be better than us, but are going to be those that decide what those tasks should be, those that decide what are the questions that we will ask AI to answer, and then those that are also equally willing to take responsibility if something goes wrong.
So we'll still have some relevance, some of us at least.
You in particular, Paul.
I wish.
Always.
I wish. Time will tell.
Always. Timeless.
Time will tell. Thank you very much. Very, very insightful as always. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me.
This was Views from the Top, the podcast from Arma Partners. Please join us for some new installments.